Hi folks, I'm Peter Lemieux with Rounding Third, and I tell baseball stories. Today, I've got an absolutely extraordinary story. Come on in and I'll do my best to do this one. I have to tell you, this is a very, very difficult story to tell because it's hard to nail down all the facts. What are you talking about, Peter? I'm talking about a person who was one of the most influential and best baseball players ever. So famous that he was known by one name. Today I'm going to talk about Satchel Paige. Satchel Paige, from what we can tell, born 1907 in Mobile, Alabama, and pitched into the 1960s. Let me start at the beginning. There was a great controversy over how old Satchel really was because a lot of what we know about Satchel is legend and myth and word-of-mouth stories. You see, he couldn't play in the major leagues because he was black. So he pitched anywhere. Pickup games, semi-pro games, professional games with the black leagues. He would go to other countries to pitch because when Satchel pitched, people came out and Satchel made money. Satchel made good money, promoting himself and sometimes taking percentages of the gate and things like that anywhere he could go. So it's hard to tell exactly everything he did, but the stories are truly extraordinary. When Satchel was a young man, he got sent to reform school because he was in trouble. Satchel never went to school, and he was known for stealing things. So truancy and stealing put him in reform school. In reform school, however, Reverend Moses Davis noticed that this young man could throw a ball farther and faster than anybody else. So while in reform school, Reverend Davis taught Satchel how to pitch. When Satchel left reform school at the age of 17, he went to work pitching. And that's all he did for the rest of his life. He would get little towns around to pay him to pitch. He was extraordinarily talented, put up incredible numbers, and they found out that Satchel was quite an entertainer. He would talk a lot out loud to the crowd, to the people. He would brag, and people, every time, everywhere Satchel pitched, he drew crowds. He pitched semi-pro from 24 to 26, 1924 to 26, and then joined the Black Leagues. Now, one of the things about Satchel is he didn't honor contracts. Whoever paid him got him. He would break a contract to go someplace to make more money. Now, these leagues did not keep good records. So a lot of it is, I saw this, I heard this about him, until we actually did get the Negro Leagues at one time started keeping records, so we do have those. But there's the story, which has been told different ways, that in the ninth inning of a game, Satchel leading 1-0, with 2 outs, his team made 3 consecutive errors loading the bases. And he got so frustrated, he called the outfielders in and made them sit down in the infield and struck out the last batter to win the game. So, true, not, it's been told in different variations, but that's the kind of entertainer and tremendous pitcher Satchel Paige was. We do have records of some things, okay? No-hitters that he pitched. He pitched a game that's recorded where he struck out 17 batters, which was a record against the Cuban Stars. And then 6 days later, he went out and struck out 18 batters. Satchel pitched a lot. He felt that if he could pitch, he could draw the crowds and he could make more money. So we have confusing statistics about just how many games Satchel actually won. I looked up in the baseball almanac, and we know he won 28 games in the major leagues. Yes, Satchel pitched so long that he actually came into the major leagues after the color barrier was broken. and won 28 games. There are minor league records of him winning another 232 games. For some reason, Wikipedia has him winning 125 games. ChatGPT is probably closer to the truth. They estimate that Satchel Paige won over 2,000 games in his life. No way, that can't be true. That can't be true. This guy pitched from the time he was 17. And his last pitching, he was 65 years old. And he pitched a lot. And he pitched everywhere. He was known, even though he couldn't get into the major leagues, because in the offseason, he would do barnstorming games against white players. Played against Bob Feller, Dizzy Dean. After one game, when he beat the white players, Dizzy Dean said, "That is the best pitcher I have ever seen." That year, Dizzy Dean had just completed winning 30 games, plus another 2 in the World Series for the St. Louis Cardinals. And he couldn't believe what an amazing pitcher Satchel Paige was. And the legend goes on, Satchel Paige pitched in 5 different countries. He pitched in the United States, Canada, Dominican Republic, Mexico, and Cuba at different times in his life. One time he was on a team of all-stars called the Homestead Grays in Pittsburgh, where the owner went and hired the very best players available. And yet, in the middle of the league, Satchel leaves the team and goes to Bismarck, South Dakota, because they offered to pay him $600 a month plus give him a car for the month. He was gone. After that month was up, Satchel came back to the Homestead Grays, not real popular with the players, but he pitched him to the championship once he came back. So it's stories like that that just make it incredible. Now, in 1948, this is when the white world got to see Satchel Paige. Bill Veeck, owner of the Cleveland Indians, and his team were in an intense pennant race trying to beat out the New York Yankees, which they eventually did, and he wanted another starter. So he signed Satchel Paige at the age of 42 to come in and pitch for the Indians. He was a 42-year-old rookie. He became the 7th black person to play in the major leagues. He came in to pitch for the Indians. 2 incredible games happened in that year. I want to talk about August 3rd, 1948. He was pitching in a big game against the Washington Senators. The Cleveland Indians had a stadium that held over 70,000 people. That night, 72,562 people, a record for Major League Baseball at the time, came to see Satchel pitch against Washington. He was nervous at the beginning, walking to and giving up a triple. However, that was it. The Senators did not score again. They relieved him in the 7th inning. The Indians won 4-2. His next start was in Comiskey Park in Chicago, where 51,000 people paid to see the game. Satchel Paige, at the age of 42, went out and pitched a 9-inning shutout, beating the White Sox 5-0. August 20th, coming into that game with the White Sox, Bob Lemon, Gene Bearden, and Sam Zoldak had thrown shutouts to run a 30-inning scoreless streak, 11 shy of a big league record. For this game, 78,000 people came to see Paige, 6,000 more than the previous record. Paige went the distance, giving up 2 singles and 1 double for his 2nd consecutive 3-hit shutout. At that time, that 42-year-old rookie was 5 wins and 1 loss with a 133 earned run average. Now, he teetered off toward the end of the year. He didn't pitch but a little bit in the World Series, but he did become the first black pitcher to pitch in a World Series game. He didn't perform as well. He got older. He got released by Cleveland and was signed by the St. Louis Browns. who were always looking for ways to bring in attendance. And in 1952, he was having a great year, so Casey Stengel put him on the All-Star team, making him the first black pitcher to pitch in an All-Star game. Weather got in the way. After 5 innings, the game was called, so Casey promised him the next year he would be on the All-Star team. Now, he didn't have as good a year the next year, but Casey kept the promise, and he brought in Satchel Paige to make the All-Star game 2 years in a row at the age of, 43 or 44 years old. Get to the end of the story. Satchel Paige got to the point, story is, that he was 1 game short of a pension. So the Kansas City owners, Charlie Finley, signed him at the age of 59 for 1 game. The game was played up big. They had Cool Papa Bell there to introduce him. They had him sitting in the bullpen with a rocking chair, and he started the game. First guy popped out. The second guy got a 2-base error, but then got thrown out trying to steal third. Carl Yastrzemski doubled, but Tony Conigliaro hit a fly ball to end the first inning. The next 6 batters in a row were retired by 59-year-old Satchel Paige, and after 3 innings, he left the game. Pretty amazing. He continued to tour the country, pitching whenever he could, right through 1966. And he was just the most incredible entertainer, pitcher. He developed names for his pitches. There was the eephus pitch, which Zach Greinke throws occasionally today, where the full lineup, you just lob the ball in, and it lobs in and fakes the batters out. He had a pitch he called Long Tom, Whipsy Dipsy Doo, Midnight Creeper, and a wobbly ball. At one time, in pitching in a game, the batter said, "That's got to be something on the ball that's illegal. I want you to throw the ball out of the game." And Satchel yelled down to the umpire, "You might as well throw them all out because all my pitches move like that." But that's the kind of entertainer and great player that he was. Unfortunately, I have so many Satchel Paige stories that I could just go on for hours, but I've got to keep this to the length I have it. I wanted all of you to meet and get a taste of one of the most incredible baseball players ever to play the game, Leroy Satchel Paige from Mobile, Alabama. Thanks for coming. Wish all of you a very, very great day.